Well, good morning. Welcome to the Anointing Show. This is a show that Morgan and I began where we discuss issues within churches and within clergy. This is a show that we hope brings about healing. It's based
Amen.
off of the James chapter 5, where James writes that if anyone is sick, let him call the elders, and they will pray over him and anoint them with oil. That's what we hope this show does. It brings an
Amen.
anointing oil of healing. I'm Dwayne Scoggins at Johnston Chapel United Methodist Church in Summit, Mississippi. And soon to be very close to me is my sidekick, partner, and good friend.
Yeah. Um, have you considered that we're gonna have to take a break over the summer? Okay. Let's just be real.
Oh yeah.
But school starts back the 18th of August, 18th of July, excuse me. Where the kids are gonna be going. But we could do this in person.
Yes, we could. Yes, we could. This is a
Uh
possibility.
I don't know what room we'd have to sit in or technology we could use. We have been in different places for years now. Years on I can't even remember when you moved down there. How long have you been at Johnston Chapel?
I'm working on my fourth year, or starting my fourth year.
Starting fourth year. So 3 years. Okay.
3 years, yeah.
years later this year. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. We've been doing this a long time. Long
Yes,
time.
we have.
Holy Conversations and now Anointing Oil. Yeah, I appreciate Dwayne. Uh I'm Morgan Spencer, currently serving Ingomar United Methodist Church, which is becoming Ingomar Community Church, which means my family and I are moving, which will probably be a bullet point in our discussion today. And I will try not to rant as heavy as I have the last couple episodes, and allow you to take some of the conversation as well. But this is an important conversation that we need to have. And so here we are. And so always excited. Yeah, I'm moving to Hickory Grove United Methodist Church, which I will meet on Saturday. So super excited. Super excited. Yeah. We will be driving the over 4 hours with kids and my mother down to Hattiesburg-ish, Mississippi.
Hattiesburg.
Hattiesburg-ish. So it's about
Yeah.
15 minutes west of Hattiesburg.
Yep. About that. Yeah.
Yep,
Something like
yep.
that. Yep.
I feel like your hat is
So,
more Christian than mine today, Dwayne. I feel like I need to up my hat game.
oh no, no problem, no problem. This is just my golf hat to kind of curb people's language. Because me and you were talking earlier about there's some guys that we play with that tend to have some rough language. And so other
It
people feel
happens.
uncomfortable. Yes, it does.
That golf
And there
shot
are other
goes it goes left or goes right, whatever that's called. I can't remember. There's some words that might flow sometimes.
Oh yes, yes. Um, and so to try and help calm the language to make other people feel less uncomfortable, I bought this hat to start wearing to play golf in.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All
Doesn't
right.
bother me about the language. But okay. So last time we met, we talked about you and having to move because of disaffiliation and what that looked like and what that felt like.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Today we're going to talk about the families.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
because one thing that I don't think we realize a lot of times, even us as pastors, um, one of the things that has always been pointed out is that it is the clergy person that is called to the ministry and not the family. And a lot of times when we as clergy, we get wrapped into the ministry side of it, and we think that we, ought to just, our family ought to just come along with us. And sometimes it's not so easy for the family.
It's
Um,
always. So I don't know where you want to start, but let's start with spouses before we move
yeah,
on to kids, because it's funny. It, they're called and they're not called, right? So for my wife, when we started dating, I knew at the time my calling to be a pastor and a preacher, although it took a long time in our marriage for me to get there. I knew, but I think even knowing and her understanding her responsibilities and role in the church, just because you know that doesn't make it any less difficult.
no, no. Well, and I'll tell you from when I asked before I asked Terry to marry me, my wife, um, I was already in the process. I was a certified candidate. And in fact, there was a possibility that I was going to be getting an appointment. Um, and so before I asked Terry to marry me, I said, I want you to think about this and pray about this, about marrying me, because I will be in the ministry. And are you prepared for that?
Yeah,
And she said yes. I mean, she's, and it is that. But I think sometimes that they they say yes, I'm okay with it, until it actually happens.
sure.
And then that's where we have to kind of be understanding and supportive.
It's hard to explain this life to folks until you experience it.
Exactly.
I had plenty of pastors who talked to me, kind of giving me insight and encouragement, mentors who, would speak some stuff to me about different things and would take Vicky off to the side and talk to the other preachers' wives too, and they would talk about some different things. But until you experience it, it's a weird deal.
Yes.
You're the preacher's wife. You're not. My wife is Vicky Spencer. Sometimes she's called Vicky Spencer. Sometimes she's just the preacher's wife.
Hmm.
You know, and and so there's a lot of expectation that goes along with that. A lot of ways they are judged and looked at. A lot of ways in which they think more about what they say, and not to mention too, so put that on one side, not to mention how weird is it that they have to sit in a room at times and overhear people complain about their husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and some of that has a place. There's a place where we need to be held accountable,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
We are not above reproach.
Oh
And so,
no.
uh, but even with that, like, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
Like that's not how most people in a marriage operate, where folks are just dogging your husband around you and you're supposed to just like let that go. I don't know. I
No.
know some pastors' wives that do, and some that will be straight up, you don't need to talk about that
Yeah.
right now in my
Well,
presence.
I know my wife. Um, she won't go to church meetings. Um, because she knows the heat that I'm going to be taking. And she says that she just can't sit there and watch me take that heat like that and not get emotional. And I tell her, I said, well, you just have to learn that it's business. It's
Yeah,
not personal, it's business.
but for us, it comes, we understood that. Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
experience that, it's I can't say specifically what happened because I can't remember. Vicky said something to me one time where we were serving. It was like, "How did you put up with such and such a thing happening? How did you deal with that?" And I was
Hmm.
like, I'm so used to being disrespected, it kind of feels normal.
Yeah.
Like it
Exactly.
just becomes it just doesn't stick anymore the same
Yeah.
way it did once upon a time when I was a youth pastor. Some of
Yeah.
that stuff I'd think about for days, but and so and I'll tell you, I want to talk about this. I had this prepared even before you reminded me we were talking today. Had a church member say out loud to my wife when the discussion about us having to move came up again. And they said to her out loud, "You ready?
Yeah.
Well, you knew what you were getting into when you married him."
Oh, 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 oh. Mm.
In a reference to having to move, right?
Right. Yes, exactly.
And I think I think well,
So,
I think a lot
so,
of things. But
so can I ask this question?
sure.
Who helped that person get up off the carpet?
Well, we tend to we tend to be people who never think of the thing we need to say in the moment and always think of it later.
Exactly.
And so I just, even if that's true, that doesn't make this any less hard. Like,
No, it
y'all get
doesn't.
that, right?
No.
We, I'm sure pastors that stay some places for a long time can experience the opposite of this.
Yes.
But one of the things that come alongs with being a clergy couple, where the one person is the pastor and the other is the pastor's spouse,
Yeah.
one thing that comes along with it, like she ain't invited to stuff.
No.
We're not going to be super close with
No.
a lot of people. We will be in a pastoral sense, and but there's a line there at some point where,
There's a-
for whatever reason, folks will. There's a wall.
Yeah.
And so, dealing with that is not easy.
No, it's not. And I think part of that though is from the church side of it. The church doesn't want to get too close to the family because they know the day will come where they'll have to move and then they have to deal with their emotions.
And I think that comes from a place of ignorance. I've
Yes.
heard this before. I think it comes
Yeah.
from a place of of hurt and pain where we miss out on love and compassion because we're trying to avoid getting hurt, but avoiding to get hurt just causes more pain somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be crazy to just not love somebody now because they may leave one day. We're all going to leave one day. Death is inevitable unless Jesus comes back and ends this whole deal. Uh, all our relationships will end in some form of separation. That's how life works. Just
Yeah.
because we may not be together forever doesn't mean that you shouldn't love each other now, because
Right.
now is what's making the difference.
Yeah.
Now is what's helping us to become what God has for us. And not getting close to somebody because there's a possibility they may move someday is just out of sheer fear and ignorance, to to
Yeah.
to be kind about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
said I wasn't going to rant, and here we are.
yes, there you go. But I mean
We
this is
ain't
still
talked about kids yet. You just get ready.
yeah, I know. But I mean this is still fresh with you and everything. I mean,
Well,
so
it is, but we've experienced this in other places too.
oh yeah.
The So let's talk about this now. We've talked about this before. I want to drop this nugget here and remind everybody for clergy spouses and families who are connected to clergy, this is a lonely deal.
Yes.
It's lonely. It just
Yes.
is.
It
Yeah.
is. Yep. It is. It is. So let's bring up the real hot topic now. The kids. See now this is my thing. I didn't have that big of an issue because our kids are grown.
Yep.
Now, the separation between us and the grandkids, that is major. I mean that is something that we really struggle with, painful. But we didn't have to drag, I mean, we didn't take the grandkids out of their school and their friends to move them to somewhere else. That is totally different. Even with our four-legged children, it was no big deal. I mean, they got here and they're like, okay, you
Okay.
play,
Oh,
we're
all right.
good.
So, all right. So here we go. Here we go. So, being clergy family, the first thing you sacrifice is your nieces and nephews will never be close to you unless you happen to be appointed in an area where you can be present in their lives. They will never know you like they know other people, and you just that's the first thing. um they you will be an occasional friend and an occasional person involved in their lives, but you will never be fully present in a day-to-day way, and you just give that up. You give up, you know, you know, ball games and all sorts of things that you just straight up say this is getting sacrificed.
Yeah.
Um this is getting sacrificed. And so that's the first thing is and like you said, like that is for those pastors out there who are experiencing this, you are not alone as well.
Oh no.
This is hard. It is. It's hard.
Yeah.
We don't, in a United Methodist church, in this context, we are sent, which that process is there for a reason, and there are pros and cons to everything.
Yes.
And so, but that does make this calling for us as people difficult.
Yes.
All right, so from the church side, so let me be as blunt and as gentle as I possibly can. Do not ask for a young family if you aren't prepared to care and love that young family. Period. End of discussion. Don't bring it up because it's a responsibility taken on by very lightly
Yeah.
by a lot of places. Now I know some great stories where churches have gone out of their way to have to for children of clergy families to be really welcomed and loved and taken care of. There's a lot of great stories, but
Yes.
there's a lot of bad stories too. So I want to give credence to both. Okay.
Yes.
And so for them, they didn't ask for this.
No.
This is not their fault.
No.
And again, I'll hit another bullet point we talked about with clergy family, and I'll hit it with clergy children. They have ears.
Yeah, yes, they do.
And when you talk smack about their mom or dad in their presence, you wouldn't do that to anybody else in the congregation. Don't do it about. There's a
Yeah.
time and a place. You could find a time and a place to talk your smack. Don't do it around the kids. Just don't
Yeah.
do it. That seems Christian.
Yeah.
To be kind about it. And so there needs to be an emphasis on making sure they are as loved and encouraged to grow in a specific place as possible. And if you get a young family, you need to understand that they are going to grow roots where they're planted.
Mm-hmm.
You and and with any root system, you need to be very, very careful with how they're given water and allowed to grow, because you can destroy them as well.
Yes.
There is a reason. At a certain point, it's not a pattern anymore. There's a huge amount of data that says that children of pastors don't often become faithful members of communities of faith because they have seen too much of what
Yeah.
churches do to pastors. Now there's also the opposite side where, they are loved and become faithful members of the community and the church, and even some of them go on to fulfill a ministry. We see that in the United Methodist Church a lot in our state of Mississippi. There's lots of, this pastor, and then their son serves, and then even their son serves. And so that happens a lot too. But the opposite has a lot more data than that. So
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah. I mean, it amazes me though. I mean, you see, if you just do a search on the internet for social media on what they call PK kids, pastors' kids, PKs.
Yep.
The things that you will hear these some of them are still kids say about what it means to be the kid of a pastor. It is almost heart-wrenching, the things that they tell and have experienced in their lives, um and it becomes difficult for them, um at times, and especially when they're young, and they're in school and they've made their friends, and now all of a sudden mama or daddy comes in and says, hey, guess what, we're moving. Well, I mean, that becomes a major issue for them. And what you were saying about being a church and requesting a young family. Yeah, be ready for that, but also be understanding that just because you're getting a pastor with kids doesn't mean your church is going to fill up with kids, because for a lot of people that's their mentality.
Mm.
Is that oh, we'll have pastors' kids, well, more kids will come to be with the pastor. No,
Mm.
no, 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 not necessarily. um it doesn't work that way.
I so we served in Walnut for 3 years, and then we
Mhm.
served in Shiloh and Bethel for 5. For the most part, in those 8 years, my kids were the only kids their age in the churches, in
Mhm.
all of those churches. They were
Yeah.
the only ones. Um, I think there were some that were close in a couple places, um, but it wasn't many.
No.
Wasn't many.
No.
And because those kids have lived in that area their whole lives, they already have friends. They don't need
Right.
new
That's right.
friends. And it is the girls were really young when we were in Walnut. They
Hmm.
were in Pope a long time. We were in Pope 5 years, which I say long time. It doesn't feel long anyway.
Yeah.
A couple of those years were COVID, and so you can just put
Oh,
an
yeah.
asterisk on that. So,
Yeah.
um, and so they never really made close friends until currently in the last 2 years, as middle school students. My girls now, Noah is put Noah off to the side.
Yeah. No, no, it's a different situation.
For them, they have they've made really good friends here, like really
Mhm.
good friends. And so yeah, this one is really, really painful.
Yeah.
It's why we bought them cell phones earlier than I would have wanted to.
Right.
If they weren't, if I did a different job, if I was a school teacher, you know. And so they could still correspond with their friends. In fact, we talked about downloading Zoom onto their phones so they can do some video conferencing with their friends as well. And so, which is going to be
Well,
hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
but I mean, kids nowadays, though, the thing is they know how to do FaceTime and all that stuff a whole lot better than any of us.
Sure.
Or me, anyway, let me put it that way. Better than me.
Go ahead.
But I was just saying, I mean, that's how they can I mean, they still can have the contact visually and verbally, but it doesn't match the personal, being there.
Yeah. Just because we go into the ministry and we seek to live out our call, we need to start leaving pastors' places longer. This has really harmed our congregations for the last 100 years. I have heard it in every church I've ever served. Because it has become such a long pattern of behavior, our churches are broken in a lot of ways, expecting to never ever really care about their pastor or the pastor's family, because you just pick up and move every 3 years anyway. And so this is we have got to learn to be people who work things out rather than just, oh, well, there's a problem, bring us somebody new, change them out. There are times where pastor and congregations don't fit. Sure, that does happen. No, but outside of that, we need to be people that stays longer, because I think it will build up the kingdom of God better. I just do. And if your pastor isn't growing, then put their feet to the fire.
That's right.
We
push them.
Push them. Yes. Push me. I have to be pushed.
Exactly. Exactly. I get pushed all the time. I mean,
and so, and I think that would make this not quite what it is, because and when we talked about bringing this up, you knew and I knew that this was going to hit me to the heart. My girls are 14 and my son is 10, and so we will be moving in June for the 4th time in 9 years.
Yeah.
So just take a minute and think about the average there and what that means.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to address this, you can. If not, say I don't want to touch that, and that's cool too.
Okay.
But let's bring Noah in now, and his special needs.
Sure.
I mean, these are things that have to be considered as well. And what effect does that have on him?
It's interesting. It's hard to, because he's not as communicative. Like, he's verbal now, like he talks and has tremendous vocabulary. But it has been difficult. Years ago we thought he might be leaning autistic. A lot of doctor's visits over a series of 5 years, different things, and coming out the other side, he's not autistic, he's just ADHD. And so, but in one church years ago, like, he would get up and walk around like during the service. And I did have some church folks who were mad about it, didn't like it. And they didn't understand that he doesn't understand why he can't come hold my hand while I'm preaching. Like, sometimes if it comes to his mind, it's difficult for him to stop himself. And sometimes he's going to want to come up and sit on the pulpit next to me while I'm preaching, just to feel close to me. Right. He has said that to me many times. So there's an uncomfortability. and I think most church, I will say, I'll speak very highly. I will say most churches, most of the people, at least 90% of the people, have been beyond loving and compassionate about this situation.
Yes.
They've really understood, and Noah has grown in this way. He was really a lot better when his grandmother could be at church every Sunday. She hasn't been
Yeah.
able to because of cancer and things, and so uh, it has been difficult the last year. I feel like we've taken a little bit of a step back in how he has been at church, but and he's he it's not easy for him to make friends either, but
Mhm.
we're working together on that. But I appreciate you asking about it. He's his own little dude. Noah's just Noah.
This we
For those
know.
of you who don't know Noah, uh I'll post some stuff. You can get to know Noah.
um, and me personally, I've never served in in an urban or suburban church. I've always served rural churches.
Me too.
So I mean, uh, as we look at our families and moving into churches and everything, um, and talking about the kids and making friends, when you move into a urban church or a suburban church, there will tend to be more kids their age there,
Yep.
um, as compared to the rural churches where where you and I serve most of our time. Um, and don't get me wrong, I love my rural churches. I
Yep.
don't think I don't think I could successfully serve a suburban church. Um,
Come on,
and,
man.
that's just me.
Let's
Um,
put a pin in that. We'll talk about that next time we talk.
okay, all right, yeah, we can do that. But I mean, what I was going to say was, it's for our kids and stuff. If you got moved into a suburban church, things might be a little bit easier on them because they would have more kids to make friends with.
Well,
Uh,
it's
Go
not
ahead.
just moving there. It's not just because they have more kids. In
Right.
urban and suburban areas, there's a lot more turnover of people.
Right. Yes.
So it's a very different community.
Yes.
In some of these rural churches, their great grandparents built the church, stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so where in rural areas people tend to stay a long time.
Yes.
And there are lots of rural churches that do have lots of kids or have some kids, and so but for the most part, there's not as many. And I
Right.
think that little bit more of transientness that exists in urban areas helps the development of used to making new friends more than in
Mhm.
rural churches where sometimes someone new, it takes a while for people to warm up to you. It just
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that goes for clergy as well.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
like we know that walking in.
Oh yeah.
I'm meeting the new church folks on Saturday, and I know walking in, it's going to take them a while to get used to me and the way I make jokes, and they have to laugh or I get mad.
Yep. Exactly.
You got to humor me. If
Yeah.
you don't
Exactly.
laugh, I'm going to keep making more jokes that are
Right.
bad.
They're gonna get worse. I'm telling you, they're gonna get worse.
And so, more than anything, what I would say to pastors and clergy family, like it's okay to admit this is hard. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. We have to work through that, and we have to forgive.
Yes.
Uh, Especially for congregations, just uh, we appreciate what you are doing. Just continue to be more mindful and hopeful about how you can. All right, I we're probably 30 minutes in. Whoever stuck around this long is going to hear me say this to congregations. Let me just be as kind as I can be. Just because you say you're welcoming doesn't mean you're welcoming.
Oh, there's a drop the mic.
I mean, I don't mean to be a jerk. I don't mean to be a jerk. I'm not speaking about any church specifically. I'm not calling
No.
anybody's names. I'm thinking about a few, but
Yeah.
you know, it every church thinks they're the most welcoming place in the world, and like that just ain't how it works.
But this past Saturday, was it this? No, Saturday a week ago, went to a training, and the training was on hospitality.
Yep.
And one of the things that was pointed out was that every church thinks that they are hospitable. And in actuality, they're not. I mean, they do the welcome. They say, "Hey, how are you doing?" All this stuff, but that that's as far as it goes. We thank you for coming and being with us today and all that, but that's as far as it goes.
We're
And
welcoming as long as they look the way we want to look, dress the way we want them to dress, and yeah. Anyway, this is a conversation.
yeah, this is another conversation.
We've gone, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, we're chasing rabbits now.
no, we're
Anyway,
not chasing. We're digging holes. What we're gonna have to get out of.
um,
You ain't
but,
wrong though. You ain't
but
wrong,
one
and
one
that
of the
training
things,
ain't wrong.
no, but one of the things that you were saying just now, and this is something that I think pastors and families have to do, and that is be forgiving.
Ooh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, because it's easy to hold I won't say a grudge, but it is easy to hold hurt and pain when you've had to move because not because the ministry there, it was time for the ministry to change and you recognize that,
Mm,
but because of things that have taken place that you had no control over whatsoever.
yup,
And so there's hurt there, and we have to be forgiving
we do.
um in those places. And as you know, as you and I have talked, I'm a fine one to be saying this, but um, but I
You
mean, it's
starting to really share the tea right now, man.
yeah,
Yeah. Although I
but
know that's Coke, not tea, but like,
right,
yeah,
um,
yeah. This move for us, we've talked about it. It is different in that this isn't about ministry. This is something else.
yes,
And yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
So it's good to talk. I hope
Yep, it
that
is. Go ahead.
this was encouraging. I hope we hit on something that those of you out there have experienced. I know we couldn't cover it all. We'd be here all
Oh,
day.
yeah.
And I haven't experienced it all either. So if you have an experience, I'd love to share it. The
Hmm.
email is anointingoilshow@gmail.com. So
Yes, it
if folks
is.
want to email us, share your story. That will help. It
Yes, it will.
helps to share your story.
Yes, it does.
Um, we will absolutely keep your name and everything confidential. That's nobody
Yep.
else's business. But um, in fact, we signed something that we would keep things confidential. You remember having to
Yep.
do that,
Yep.
and that's a big part of this deal. And so, hopefully, as more and more people hear us, they will trust us with
Yep.
that. So, it's
Hopefully.
good to see you. Always good to get to come and talk.
Yep. Good to see you. Thank everybody for watching. God bless you and have a good week. And we'll probably see you again in a couple of weeks.